Hey guys, what's up? Welcome back to another video. In this video, I'm going to be giving you guys my spoiler-free review of the first episode of Falcon and the Winter Soldier. If you guys have already seen the episode and you want to check out my spoiler review / discussion, you can click right up here. And if you guys are new around here, hit that subscribe button and turn notifications on so you don't miss whenever I upload a new video or I go live. But without wasting any more time, let's get into it. 6 months after being handed the mantle of Captain America at the end of Avengers Endgame, Sam Wilson and Bucky Barnes must team up in a worldwide adventure that tests their abilities and patience. So, starting off with the good. I thought that the best thing that was in this episode was probably the introduction scene that we got. It was a great action sequence. I'm not going to go into detail because I don't want to spoil anything for you guys, but it was cool to see some Marvel action again. It was cool to see all of his new tech. He had some cool tech that he had on that he was using in the battle. I'm super excited to see the direction that they go in with his character in terms of combat, because I feel like they're going to have to switch up the styles, especially since they're traveling around the world in this show, and also him teaming up with Bucky will probably cause them to kind of make their fighting styles cohesive with one another. And also on top of the action sequences, the CGI was awesome and it literally looked like a movie. And from what you can tell in this episode so far, you can it definitely feels like they shot it like a movie and they just split it up into 6 different parts. It feels like they're gonna keep going in the same direction, like in terms of making a movie. It's like a 6-hour movie just split up into 6 different episodes. I think that's a pretty cool way to do it. Whereas WandaVision, you were left off at a cliffhanger at the end of every episode. This episode has a cliffhanger, but it's more or less just new information. It's not something that kind of leaves you on the edge of your seat waiting as much, but it's more like a normal TV show where something is concluded at the end of the episode and then there's also one big question raised. Whereas in WandaVision, everything was a mystery from the first episode. In this episode, we also get a tease of the terrorist group, which seems like they're going to be the big terrorist group in this entire series, but I might be wrong. I've only seen 1 episode. So I think that the way that they're teasing the terrorist group was pretty cool. They only teased them a little bit, and then we got one little slight action sequence that was like literally like a minute or 2. So it wasn't anything too crazy, but it was cool to see that they were teasing it. This episode was definitely not driven by villains or anything like that, because we barely got to see any of the actual villains. We didn't get any of Zemo, and we got a little bit of a tease of a villain in the initial action sequence, but other than that, I like the way they teased them while still keeping it character focused. I think one of the best things in this episode, other than the initial action sequence, was definitely seeing the repercussions of the blip, the snap that Hulk did in Endgame. We saw a lot of different reasons why like heroes should be treated differently. You still got those political vibes from Captain America Civil War and Captain America Winter Soldier. It wasn't like all that went away. There was actually like, it's like, it kind of tests your morality, I guess, and I like the way that they introduced that because they kept the same aspects from the previous movies with Falcon the Winter Soldier, and they kind of brought it into this show specifically. So I like the way that they did that. I'm not going to give too much away, but there are a couple scenes where you can definitely tell they're trying to get you to pick sides. Are you going to stick with the government and what they're saying, or are you going to stick with the heroes and kind of fall into their side? And so now I want to move on to the mixed aspects of this episode. So the first thing was definitely the weird tone switches. There were a lot of moments where it was lighthearted and then it randomly got super serious and then it randomly got lighthearted and happy again. It was just weird to see those different tone changes. I liked the way that they did the tone changes in the beginning of the episode, but towards the end, it felt like they were kind of trying to rush everything into a smaller packed amount of time. So I felt like the tone switched so randomly in it. It felt really weird at the end of the episode, but most of the episode was fine, but towards the end, it definitely started to get a little bit too choppy for me. And finally, I don't really know if this is a good or a bad thing, but it was more character-based of an episode than it was actually story-based. We were just getting exposition on Bucky and Sam. We got exposition on Sam and his family, his experiences after the blip, because he was a normal civilian before the blip. He wasn't necessarily a top-tier hero in the world, so he was still living a normal life. He was gone for 5 years, and now this episode shows the repercussions of not being there for 5 years. And we also get him interacting with his family and all those different types of conflicts. We also see Bucky and his conflicts with kind of dealing with his mental health, since he's literally been in war since for 90 years. So it's crazy to see all of that and kind of calm the storm and see the backstory of these characters. Yes, that's a good thing, but at the same time, we had no story acceleration. Obviously, this is only the first episode, so I'm not too worried, but I hope they don't go in the direction of WandaVision of just building, and then everything gets rushed and packed into the last 2 episodes. So I'm excited to see what they do. I just hope they don't rush it too much, and I hope they don't mess up the pacing, because this show has a lot of potential when it comes to mixing action, drama, and just character development in general. But I think they'll do a great job. It's really fine. It's not that big of a deal right now, but I just thought it was worth mentioning that it's more character driven than actually story driven. So my final thoughts for this episode, I thought it had a great introduction. It set up the characters really well. It had enough action to suffice for now, and it was definitely more character driven, which isn't necessarily a bad thing, but it's not necessarily my favorite part of the episode. Overall, it was a great episode. If you're debating whether to check Falcon the Winter Soldier out, I really recommend you do. This is a bit of a slower episode, and you can honestly binge it all at the end if you really want to. But nevertheless, I do recommend checking this episode out. Thank you guys so much for watching. I'll see you next time. Peace.